Good afternoon, everyone.
Tanda diga la mingi ba na ranchin terle de ya chita yi chi kombo da kechen bu chi tsigora inji kala minre le ter
Zu terla gem do like that.
gem la
Na treasure do like that.
kanda man ji kechen bu da zawa chen mo ra ya me ba chi ra de ji zi chen ko zawa chen bu cha do ra mo de ji ani chi ban zeng bu gu ba ta ba ne no da de le no da zi this to restaurant.
So then moving on with the root text, we are at the fourth verse, and when we look at the fourth verse, then the general kind of topic or the technique that is talked about here in this particular verse is treating cruel people as a treasure or as a gem. And herein we look to these cruel people as the perfect object of our practice of tolerance and so on. So when we talk about gems or treasure in general, then the kind of value that we put on these gems or treasure derives from the fact that it is a rare thing. So this is the manner in which we need to approach cruel people, that it is rare for us to get this opportunity to practice, to find such perfect objects of tolerance. Thus.
duja la ro tene ya ko shutra ne tapol ne jipe kashibe juba tubu de do tene gi ane suzala sanya nyane che tongju che wa ye chese che wa nya je dang de chibi kala chibi sana che du ga la sra tu du nganzu chida ine kondo la ya gi jiki ne na ji chago yo ra mi di su ya bo chine de ne zo tongju che nya je dang ane china pala nganzu gi su che tu na ra ma tu na da long la ane pa chi tik tu bu ji me na la ro tapsi dang wo ra Tinde mai ke ngone tane nyamne che thuni ji na tando dinde gi ko ga rawa dala ani para gawa gom ra tari nga zubo gom sa yuji ra so yudi tsawa chimbo chimba san tande sam tang ore la tati nga zo nande zuba da dinde ga nyamne men tes loyi lo shun khabar ra hajin nga zo thonju de se go la ro le go ra ta ngone gi chiba nanda ji nyamne cheni ji na ko la di go re namdu nga zo mi chi wa ji shin ko zo le ba le pe shun khabar ra Teba nashengi ani yeba kawa tangsra yeba kawe jinze shu chesna tende wedala ani tendegi tende pe kale khabo jire tendegi ngala zuba gomsa yudu ra kale khabo jire samne tandu dila ba cheban zama yako chewa ra changchong chewa tendegi ani tendegi lo chewa sho la yidara.
So then if you read the actual verse itself, then it reads along the line of, whenever I see ill-natured beings or those overwhelmed by heavy misdeed or suffering, I will cherish them as something rare, as though I had found a priceless treasure. Herein, and when we look at the verse, then the first two words kind of describe the kind of opportunity that presents before ourselves when such ill-natured beings or cruel beings who are overwhelmed or who are under the influence of negative afflictions then engage in heavy misdeeds and inflict suffering upon us, then a natural reaction or our natural reaction to such a person or such a situation is one of retaliating in the same manner. And the text advises us that text advises us that in such a situation, this is not the recommended reaction, because it will further give rise to more conflict. And the kind of practice that we need to adopt, or attitude we need to adopt in such a situation, is to look at it as an opportunity to practice or cultivate tolerance and forbearance in ourselves, since these instances and these people serve as the perfect object of our tolerance and forbearance. And when we talk about the practice in this manner, then it is kind of as for us as normal lay people. Then when we hear this kind of practice for the first time, and the need to adopt this kind of attitude, then it doesn't really appeal to our senses and really appeal to our experience. And this is because we are not used we are not familiar to such a practice, because we do not have a solid grounding or preparation in immediately putting this into practice. So this kind of applies to real, genuine practitioners who have dedicated many years and effort to kind of adopt these practices. So herein, when we talk about this practice, then it is to kind of highlight the point that for a genuine practitioner, then this is the approach we need to take in such an instance.
Sira chik damla chiwne suzu di zubagum tuumdara namsang nganzo namji injido yado natsu chik lawa yana patsik zubu la yado yandela chik ko kashin la yana jinsero sam dandando nung cher yado cher do yado tene ngenka pe ra nganzo rinchi tena jere sam tene sam tatu yade pekale kawre taine ya nganzo chik sona la ya nima ki lega chen digal chik kare ne chi shogene gonda pato lega cheri lega lero inare kawa ina nganzo chishilo dogas mindamda choba damar thungra Mitsama chiba mara, samutamba chiba mara, koyu chiba medigala, karine tumsu digala, alda dene tene ungra samedo bira, perinchete na shik dene samta thura de peabura. Tene tang matu na ya, teste de ungra yas, de misini de notu ungra, ra, te nganzo chik khatta ingela jansa jena nganzo tusunda demba jinsa notu karine chesigra. Pakidel de junsere kokaya mara korana ya, deshashena timudu yewa insa, maribu wange daga notu chigire samne. Suzuki di Pakondolage Palelo this chundura.
Yes. So then, as we talked about before, that for us as lay people, then it is kind of tough to put this into practice. Would we really be able to look at such people, or in this instance, could we really develop the attitude of looking them as something rare, as a treasure or a gem? This is very tough. And now a practical way of trying to adopt this practice is in this manner. For instance, if the kind of way that we react normally to some harsh words that were used towards us, or even in a small instance where someone looks at you differently, then we retaliate in a similar manner. This is evident in our daily experience, and now we need to try to not engage in such a reactive manner to these instances. And then how do we approach such instances, and how do we kind of put this into practice then? Then, as we already discussed, if you are able to kind of look at them as rare, as the perfect opportunity to practice tolerance, and treat them as rare as gems, then this is the supreme best practice. But if not able to do that, then think about the fact, as we discussed before, that since we are human beings, and then it is always possible for us to run into different people, and and as such, different people have different ways of reacting to certain things, and we need to accept this too. And then also, as we discussed before, since we are human beings, then we are always under the influence of these three negative afflictions, and as such, it is sensible to think that, okay, this person is acting in this manner under the influence of these negative afflictions. So not to develop anger towards the person, but to kind of separate the two. the emotions and the person, and in this manner, then we will not be liable to react in a retaliatory manner. Lesson.
Tanadi ko nego karshi de sana chitang ki zuba gong dang ro je leader ra zuba gong su ro chen zuba gong men de la junju yi le tu ba ra tina chitang koran sa lo tu na ya bo res nte zang da ma yin ke ngan zo gi le ya zuba ta bi ka tu mi ra ane khali chitang ta bi di ba me le jira chen zuba gong me de pe kale kha bo yin ba chi zu ra chen ngan zo na lo la zuba gong goye gi ta le da ma bo chi le wor ka ngi dam le mi chi tu ja ta la ro chi zu la ro ta khari na chi zuba la yin ji mi ji gi nyap che wa chi bu ma ra ta nam di ga ra chi zo sen she la ne khari na chi do ne ro che la de ji le zuba ko da ka ngi khare le zuba chi ra ka shi te sim tu mo lam san chi ke pe do ne chi mo tu ni ro sa ma chi ji ro ra o de ne in sa namdi nga so zuba ta ka tu me la de le ra zuba ko me de pe kale khabu tele kale kha me la no ta pe na koi kabo ga she jo ra ya di kale khashi la ne ba yesira ne kap ta koran de pe kale khabu chi tsu.
So then herein then we realize that it kind of pushes us towards the practice of tolerance or forbearance, and then this practice of forbearance and tolerance is not something easy. As it is kind of mentioned in the Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, then it is kind of explored in great detail in the 6th chapter. This whole 6th chapter is dedicated to the practice of tolerance or forbearance, and in it, in the scriptures, it is mentioned that there is no harder practice than the practice of forbearance or tolerance, and there is no greater sin or more harmful sin than the sin of acting out of anger. Yes.
Today in some tanda nga ra tan mga zo ma cha la kale kem du ra today zo zo bas ni de kale ko ba in chang gom go na ta nga zo san ta wi na ra tanda nga zo ni go ja le te chawa chim bo che ya ni mi chi gi he de ne ko nyo do jo ni kya zo sam zo la nga zo ba gom na de de gom thu sa re gom da mi gi nam jo da mo yo ra kya sho so na la nga de de chi de de chi gi de ne kora che sha ju ju na di go ra ya ma ba nga che go sa na di ra ana nga de che sa re sa mi yu do jo kya zo re re chi so da re zo ba gom da jo yeah, this is on the manu slapping.
So then, since it is kind of hot today, rather than like putting you all through rather than all of you tolerating one person speaking the whole time, then I want to kind of hear from you, like your ideas about tolerance and forbearance, and how would you kind of react or try to practice tolerance in such instances. Whether you had already tried to approach it in certain manner, or how would you approach it in the future, and how would you normally like kind of approach the practice of tolerance. So I would like to hear from you too, from that side.
So I start to see that person is suffering, and that's why he's acting like he's acting with anger. So I'm trying to understand and trying not to judge, but understand what is this person coming from, like where is the source? And that helps me to not react with anger.
Rangilana media ni dungin yang de juro jila tagi es thangbo lung langye mi jura lung tunje mi tende jula tagi ani ko kharsa ko tagin lawa de shin ko semsor shukshimbo jikene ni ko da nyumongi wangi tende ro chichen gyerlen samdangi es ende ne damde zamba ko ge da lunggi chungsa jura jungkhong do di kharere do di cheba che tapshi chiges mi khorang la ni lungshi rangshin jamju es
Yeah. Very good.
I need the question again.
How would you approach like the practice of tolerance? How have you approached it before, and how do you plan to like approach the practice of tolerance in future?
Can I come back?
Yeah. Jinishigins sometimes. Yes.
I wonder if it's okay if I ask a question as my thought.
Chiwachi china digres.
I'm noticing the situation of Tibet and just the situation of the past decades. And I wonder about this practice as a collective practice. So I would just love to hear your thoughts about this, not only on an individual basis, but a collective basis.
Collective basis, that no. This chapsi the two day do chai da. Chapsi the two mine sometimes do chia da. Tia the car na. Morang this tonando is tonala ne tia ji shargi to sarasam. Ni nganzo da soba gomgorila ne nachina yudera. Ni the pegi ne dan jiora tanda. Senjulo ne lumami. Lo chudama mun ne dan tharan cha dera. Ni mirre gerengona da soba gi nyamlen ji yujira. 이나에 간저 진용 기차는 배반 미릭 기차네니 배박이다 전주내 당로지라 딜라 지용 기차네니 쇠박이 냠내내 줘라 디 칸데로지 다이너스
배반 미리
지용 냠도 투몽기
재미를 좀 칸데 공부를 해라 네
다들도 인기라
네, 다 수진도 지나다 싶습니다. 걔는데. 그래서 검사 유지 쳐봐라. 네. 다 지당이 배바 참아야 된 얘기 하고 말아. 사실 그 상담하는 시에 오늘 단다지 가리 짜고 세고 또 무슨 얘기를 내 단다가 좀 무슨 소리 시외에 나나 아니 너 송고로 메랑다 내가 손도 되잖아. 다 거기 가시베 콘도달라니 얘기를 가서 나 카이어 말에 수수 사절에 수수 밤이 뭐야미는 수수 제거를 먼저는 타나요. 수수 사절 다오제 타타요. 타나게 차네. 인게만에 수수 제거디야랑 세기 제거다. 네 그걸 다 되어라. 그딴데 요래. 다이네야 다 고조게 되네. 완차 침부 지나네. 칼다 사절이 전로체. 초바산다 맞다. 아니 칼 별 한도 전지 치는데 아니 미망보지 세타미 사용 못 쓸라고라. 다 아니 gomba mambo tojo tang ta chen mambo se me ma de se hu chen bo ro la ga ya bo chi tu ni de mambo se ra se yo tu yo re ane se singa de zo ya tang la sue ro da khalo khunju ga ra san ta na de pe zo bo mo tu yo ro che bo ra ane jime de zo ni na pu go je bo ka la so ba ane chi ki singe de da ing ma na ra da lu de sim je ya mambo yo da sam ka mambo ji ja ya da go ya do da现在的别的可能항상 뭐写了但是첩식 근데 다이나 캠들어 하는 근데 이제는 나 따와야 나 저기 저거 마트에로 쳐기라 다 베베지우기 안에서 방금도 하래는데 네 레토에 그요 말라 상수다면 가신 직초 그냥 다 개야 말이게 말이 인기를네 하려더니 가신데 가서 제마도 버리면 제고를라니 삼녀 열었으라 땅 나란도 올래 빼셔나 아치주가 디 치울는 싫어 하고 말아 that's very 사제디 응도기 바하고 그렇게 그들아 나 오늘은 내 배바기 같이 자야 레샤로 테뉴이라 같이 자 고디 수수 밤이야민 수수 사자래 어디로 된데 가서 데마토레지 내가 가서 지도에서 개험을 고좀 민보던데 답시 첨부 지르라 다시 야때 첨부차 나주장 안도 시디갈나 아주 아따라 장 한번 알아서 레니 배바기 레 지용이 레니 뭐 사이기스라 배방아 타지디깔 코조래 마이시 이기라 라 데데게 보면 수냥 거에 차기 차이기를 나지지는다 마음바 수기 레리 존이야 배발의 집이 이마지 샤기레서면 야 산노 칼리티스 주루다 배바 지용이 정말 가데라는 그슬라 카버라 대내 아저기 쇼쇼 어디레기 바 땡나보다 재미라 바니 자 싫어지기며 다 숨주들이는 데라 이제 김보도 자리야 쳐딩이 뭐 됐을리라 라상주 선반의 말에 가르니께 자야로 뭐야로 남리고라 다이나 아주 좋디 가르 탑시 당고라면 다 제거 신바든도 접지 참여로 버치로질이네 뭐 안서로다 라고마다 먼저 표디지 제거지 임바다 안데게 다가로 식된다 세야로 버치로질이네 로바가 들롱고라 이내 아주 마제기 추는 동도 되면 다도 버치로질인데 라고마 가당 좋디 제거디라도 제거 참아지 임바다 마음발에 된다 세고에 임바다 베바데 강이 진지 임바 안에 로바 치로치기는 다 던져 가다 가서 갈다 두고라 political
so then this question if I answer it then it has the risk of becoming a little bit too political too but no matter now let's just talk about it then when you ask the question then what is the collective practice of tolerance? Like, what is the collective approach of the Tibetans regarding the Tibetan situation? Now, herein, when we talk about it, then we have to think about. I cannot really speak for all Tibetans. This is something that I cannot do. But as a community and as an exile community, we have collectively, by word, adopted the policy of middle way, wherein we do not ask for complete independence. And then also our movement from the start was a non-violent movement. We have always made stuck to that promise, that it will be a non-violent movement, that we will not use violent means. And we kind of follow the leadership of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and his direction. And this is the kind of approach we have. But when we look at like what happened to Tibet as a country, then if you kind of look at it, then of course it could be a source of great frustration for Tibetans. For example, like from our ancestral lands, which we have looked after and lived on from centuries ago, and historically we have been independent, free people. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, we were forcefully invaded by a powerful force in the 20th century, the Chinese Communist Army, Liberation Army, as they call it themselves. So they invaded the country. Not only that, they killed and murdered a lot of prominent figures in our history. And not only that, then they kind of forcefully implied a lot of policies that were not really beneficial for us. So as someone who lived through and saw these kind of transgressions in front of my own eyes as I was a child, then at that moment when I was a child, young person, then I felt like I had to rise up to this challenge, that we have to kind of face the Chinese and kind of do something to like kind of rise up to the challenge that the Chinese pose to the way that we even live our life, and the way that they destroyed numerous monasteries, trying to like eliminate our culture. And then also, if you look at the historical accounts, then it's kind of 1.4 million something Tibetans, their lives are unaccounted for still, that they are murdered. So with this kind of like information, then as I was a child, I felt like a deep sense of like, frustration, and I felt that I have to rise up to this challenge. But then if we try to do something, then the other is so powerful, the population is so big, that I felt a sense of powerlessness in that instance. And now as I've grown up, then I am able to look at the situation a little bit differently. From the political side, like is already explained. And now when I try to personally try to assess the situation, then I take it in this manner, that it must be the collective karma of the Tibetan people to go under such a period of distress and exile and invasion. It must be the collective karma of the Tibetan people, because if you look back in history, in the medieval centuries, then there was instances where Tibet invaded China. So maybe it's karma ripening, it's karma taking its toll on the Tibetan people. And then with this kind of acceptance, then I'm able to look at the situation a little bit differently. And then since we accept karma, then I also believe that if not in this life, then in the next life, we may be able to see a free Tibet. And I also pray that I will be born as a Tibetan again. No?
Yeah, I also want to say a similar thing as so become political for it. So I think I'm not ready to see those cruel person as a treasure yet. And I think it's a process of the emotion. When someone really hit you very hard for generations, you really don't have that kind of heart to accept them as a treasure. So for processing that kind of emotion will take long time. So I think what I can do is I have to think these kind of people, they constantly doing this kind of bad thing to others. Perhaps their immune system is having suffering. Yeah, toxic toxic things are released inside their body. Yeah? So sort of karma thing, they will have what it is at the end. Yeah. So what I observe myself is I try not to have this bad emotion harm me, and I don't take that into my dream. Try to observe every time that this type of emotion comes, how fast I can calm all this feeling and see how I can be better me. That's what I can do at this stage.
그런 다긴 문이 티와 그치고라. 대에 티와 그 우삼 되스라. 아니 딘데도라다 미럽라 지기지라 냠주 당에. 단동 못은 냠주 당데라. 센셰데 주디즈라. 디두좀바 셈소르 숙참 보시 올리기들. 딘데라니 쇠바곰 린진도 따토에다 백학버스. 아니 양도 뒤따도 딘데 센슈 데데라스. 딘데 미치라 쇠바곰 지치라 나타 백학보 통고도스. 이네 사무직다 모랑기 소소양 셈바슈 셈소르 숙참보다 레기로. 이네 소소 테도다 칸레 롱시고 말아야 체데라. 삼노인데 당게 삼삼. 미디 다든데 납주로 땅 내가 님바치 체데라. 코란족이 수부에 농로라. 랑싱기 내가 님바체나 텔라바베 제로 두자치르기르스다. 롱사나 수불을 쩐치라. 디나신다 코랑레 지카르마로지라 레로지 님바치 사데르스다 코랑기. 내가 징이디기. 제자는 안조이 슈롱치고마다 코랑레 님바치 사데르. 내가 될 젬비 준데 테라지 포용 그랬는데 삼는 당기스. 라스.
네, 다디 문제는 안조이라. 간장도 파로라에서 문이 치바이네 이기체더라.
라.
because in another Catulun Lashera, Kotsu Dushidra. Kaji Hiji, the Ko say to in the Chinatanda, Colamacha, the Harinura, say to a new but to a new by jump to a new but some year. Ne Maoba that Java, Linde Kelenjina, and Nyon doing a quarter in the ra. That be the Basashan Bosai, calling Juchevora. Chinian of some town, the Penatana to Chiki, Chasida, Jamila, and Share. Ini Jamila Jatama and Mara, Ra, Tinalo, Janaki Janami Mamaji, Console, Tiguchini, and Kwanza Yadi, Jami Koranza, Pekangiti, they touch Jamios to one of the Duja and the time. Tendetania of this Kangiti, you do that, Koranza Mabudas, Chisamechida, and Dinalo, Tanda, only 280 Jana Mashola. Couldn't go to the pay on Chachamachi, Jana Mimatsama, the dead layamara. Tadi Chitine. Rechitanga Jixu Nang, she did Hinja, Pama, Sama Yam the day, Nalo Mijin Junior, Anichi say to Pama Samarilla, Puga, Roshana, Sepocoma to Iro, the Chawara. They don't cut to Pedrosha sometime. Penang ended Rochade, and the concession out to be the day the Kobe Hido Shira. Tis Shuzadle, Shuegan, Pandus Kachigo, Maratolic, and Suzu Gomri, the Nichin shooting Michilani. This motope could on the chair. Hazel Sena on the turbo, that the logic load of the pedamish near taking Goji and Goji Massington. Ra. And the day gun celebrated that the jelly paper on putting you go to a center, that the Kashi passport the Liomara, turned the Nelene Kashi, Kanra, the Negal. Social comfort and the lapot and the children in my book can't chapa ten. Cashin Langala Jamie Sesha, Jamie Ton Sesha, Jim Boy. That can't get the Santan that Petopera. The new shadow here when it comes had a crew in me. This chatty water. She's on the day in such a the Nanzo the Gangi or the Chanan Samaya, Chikarin and Lumba Patso, Jacob Gotito, Karina Chazira, and the name Chanan in a chick Milapashi to the day Nani, Nanzuki Dembatlea and Karanzik Javisha. Ngarangole in Revashira, so the court in Ninjimi Mans and then over Chirusila Homara, and took Dembagi Ketchadilla and Karansugi, such a court and Pipenda and the Nerish, then by Joshi, Ngarangole Revashira.
So then, for a genuine and genuine practitioner, then in such an instance, they would be able to kind of immediately look at these people with compassion. This is what a genuine practitioner would be able to do. But then, since we are not immediately able to respond in that manner, since we are not able to respond in that manner, then the way that a genuine practitioner approaches it is something that we should aspire to. And herein, since we are talking about now, as we took the example of the Tibetan situation, then one of the things that the Tibetans generally are kind of do is when we think about the fact that our country was invaded by China, then we do not look at all Chinese as our invaders. This is one clear kind of demarcation that we make in our mind, that we should not hate China as a whole or Chinese people as a whole. This we do not do, because we know that for themselves they do not have the freedom, that communist leadership is being forced upon them, and at this instance, at this moment in history, this leadership is powerful and they are suffering, the people themselves are suffering. So this is one kind of way the Tibetan will collectively approach the situation. But if you kind of look immediately at all the sufferings that the Tibetan had to go through, then of course, if you are not able to look at it objectively, then it kind of would be a maddening experience for the Tibetan if we do not adopt this kind of attitude. Now, if you are really interested in knowing, then there are a lot of books even when we talk about the Dalai Lama, a harmless Dharma practitioner who had almost had to face danger to his life, and that he had to escape from his own seat of power to India. And not only him, then a flock of people followed behind him. And as they are trying to cross the border, then many were killed by the Chinese police or the army. And many suffered through frostbite and many hardships. So if we kind of think about this experience alone, and the Tibetan people fixate on the sufferings itself, then it is a very maddening and frustrating experience. But the way that we kind of approach it is in this manner, as we talked about. So maybe now, as we have discussed all this, then I would like to also say that the struggle of the Tibetan people is a pursuit of truth and freedom. So as we kind of discuss it here, then I'm sure, as you go back to your countries, then it might be this case that you would grow. Some of you might even be in positions of leadership later on. So I find it important for you to kind of communicate this to your people.
Yeah, tanda nga zo di che di churang zo chepsu nga zo chua le zang nga di len di ra. Ho din di che. Ani ta zo de nga zo ta gi thyo de khala nga ra zo ba gom da ra. Kyan zo kandes gom ge yus ani ka ne kandes gom ge yis. Ani kandes gom gu sam gu tu le di la len jen de or. So ni thwa di ma da. The
whole discussion took a little bit of a political turn because the question itself was kind of loaded, and then it is impossible not to address it. So now, end of discussion, the political turn of events, and now we'll go back to the practice of tolerance, and I would like to hear from you, the rest of you, about how you would approach the practice of tolerance.
Thinking about tolerance, I see that when I find it most difficult to be tolerant to people, in personal relationships and work and things. And I think when I've been reflecting on it before, it's usually when I feel whatever behaviour that person is displaying kind of threatens something in me, whether that's a sense of self, a sense of what I think my identity is, or what I think is, something that's maybe they're competing with me in some way, and I find that kind of threatening. I think that's when I find it most difficult, and I find that quite difficult to see in the moment as well. So it's only through sort of meditating and really reflecting on why am I angry towards this person or upset by this person, not tolerating them. I'm trying to think, what is the reason for that, and taking some time and space to reflect on it. So I've kind of found in trying to kind of overcome that and be more tolerant and be more compassionate, that's quite an important step for me in those situations, to kind of look inward and think, what is my reaction here? What is my problem with this person? Because in the end, it's my reaction, my problem, and that's all I have control over. And usually, if I'm able to kind of let go somewhat of that feeling that I'm clinging to of sort of identity, or it's usually some kind of fear of something, maybe being lost, or maybe even something simple like someone's distracting or something, and you feel less peaceful or something like that, like you're afraid of losing some sense of something that you're holding on to. Like if I can sort of loosen my grip on that and let go of that, then all of a sudden I'm not bothered by their behaviour so much, because I'm not worried about it personally affecting me. And then the compassion is usually kind of there anyway, without having to do something extra. Like the tolerance is kind of there.
Now I'll try my best here. But Quran gila na yara mishinda gi joba chi dramenda chi ten yara joba dis tsuda madiwa dinde joba nyamba do chi tena ni tudu zamba ni suso la shinang ro chi kengu da shinang di khandes kharila ten che ngu dula na suso gi ngo do jora ngadi ngachi same gi ji dela ni tis nyinga do ji le yonde zamba shinang chi ki dus shinda di joba di gi yara joba gi chembe odudu zamba ani pe kharsa soba gomele di kago be redusra antidu zamba susu le choa ani medewa be kapo chi chungu dus teda nyamdo ani moge da soba nyamne la ani nega runga lamsa thangbo o tinde susu gi ngo susu su yin samba do jora tinde chi la ani nyinka la cheba ten nyinka cheba la ten ne shinang de mission da gi cheba la ten ra shinang ge yung du zamba soba kaya de pe soba le de pe kapo dus tengo nimasra ten jene ni mo tabi akshodi jene samlo tangsra thursam samlo tang en gomjab khajizan ni nga dende shinan chi chigyor khajizan nga ni soba gom thugyo mares dende ne gam chilayra kogi choba dilanga gi len dende ro chi khajan jagyo rela ne su samlo tang gi isra samlo tang de zama ani jene shine ni chi yanjo ne ne na dende ro chi chuna ani samlo logaji ligi dos da nga susu gi pena chashina tis lolo chen dengi du yo beji de ba do jera di tu gyung da pajugi ra shinda gi choba nyimbo de na lolo tu gyo di gi la zimba do jera ta ma lolo de go yo le ji o thila ani shibuji ani sim de na ani tewe ja ma so ba gom tu mi da ra ani te nang shin ani kharsa shinda ji tinde inasra ani kisi ngagi da dila zimba do jora nga ti chi gi nga hulu de go yelan dila shuji zimba machina en phojo gi khazela na en susu gi theda wa lench jago min dos chuba nyam ba khase thamne dinde do ji samlo ta thesam che ni samlo loga do ji ta ne ni chamda nginji la di rangshin gi chen guras dinde do chi ne ni kharsa susu gi lenja dan do jora ne dang chi la chuba nyam ba chi che na ne dang do chi la lenja dan do di samlo dinde do ji ta ne ni suba gom thu dus
Shana hijaro chendira.
Yes.
So, for me, the first question is, what is tolerance? When do we need tolerance? And tolerance, then I need if something disturbs me, or there must be some connection I make to something that is happening externally that I dislike, right? There's some dislike or some uncomfortability, otherwise no need for tolerance. Then I'm just not in party to what is happening. And I find that it depends very much on how much this concerns me and how much this is off my space, how easy it is to give that tolerance. If some locals start the wedding outside on the fields, the noise will be disturbing and I will need to give some tolerance, but as long as I can still hear the class, that will be very easy for me. If the farmers come in here and start the party in here, it will be much, much harder to tolerate their actions because they're much more immediate in my or our space in that time. So there is degree, and that degree on how much I feel like invaded in my space, in my being, will ask me to have more or less tolerance, which will be harder and easier to give, I guess. Then when I ask like, how can I now find this this tolerance? There's several approaches, I believe. Like we already had the compassion approach, like understanding their way. Like they celebrate this beautiful wedding and they want to celebrate it on this field because that's an important field to them. If I understand and know the story, then it is maybe something I can relate to much easier and let the other person go. Sometimes it's also okay to put myself in that this position to say I don't need to understand at all what is with the other person, because generally, how can I ever judge another person's way? Everybody will always have their reason on why they do a certain thing, and from the outside, I just see this one moment, but I feel like I have a right from this moment to judge another person's action. Let's make an example. Maybe somebody is mistreating a dog. I see that, I don't like it. So I will judge the situation immediately. But maybe there's long history to that, between that person and that dog, and they've been fighting, and their relationship is their relationship. Now I just see that, and so the tolerance would not even be needed in the first place if I wouldn't go into judging other people's behavior and business in the first place. So my own judgment aligns me to many situations where I need to have tolerance. So I try to judge less, and then also I make other people's business less my business and need to practice a little bit less tolerance. And then for me, like when it comes to having to spend that tolerance, two things I find very important. One is to reinforce, like if somebody is, let's say somebody is a violent person, if I see that person as a violent person and treat that person as a violent person, I reinforce this violence in them actually, because I deeply acknowledge it and I give them that kind of label. And with that, I'm not sure I'm helping actually. So trying to rather step away than stepping into that direction is always something I try to do, but that is very, very hard. I find it very, very hard discipline not to reinforce the bad that is already there, but see that maybe, I don't know, this person has the greatest opportunity to heal or something like that. For me then the principle of forgiveness, of course, is a very, very important and big one. To be in that position of tolerance. Something has happened already, that's why I'm looking for tolerance. And I can choose to have that tolerance now, immediately, and forgive in that moment, whatever is there, or I carry that guilt or bad feeling with me until that point I'm ready to forgive.
Awesome. Now let's unpack this. 다 뭐에 망부질라서 다 뭐에 당부 쇠바라나라 카레 카드레디 티어드니 베케침보레도스 인치당 쇠바 곰나디 칭오보기 내당로질라 당부시우 라레기도스라 칭오보레 내당라 라레기둘라나 칭오보기 디게 치랑라 데마데 소와 데마데 지티게레 티기마레레주라 야나 칭오보기 내당들라 치랑 가미가레주라 딘데로질라 아니 쇠바레 디카두 곰곰 쇠바 카레레레 티어디레인고도스 다 지르당 아니 모랑기 삼노당나스라 니 네 첩치중로 지기지 첩치중 지로 지기지 삼로 지기레기도 수발하나요라 베나차샤나다 뭐 베지테서 신바지게라 신바가시지 비게 신가지말라라 투주당데나 창사기지 게디스 잡데나 단당아주 진짜 초대요라스 진짜 초대조딜라니 키시 답싱로 지카만도 진짜기나 줄롭티 치교디 엠조나 코투제나 모서바시 디스 미노에 곰도사스 이나에 콘조 디 농로랄레 양 케잡 투주덴데 타마니 수발레 베카보로스 어 텐데도 치 첩치 지종레 지 용구도스라 soba ani soba le de mixe mogi mijik thona mi yapor dujar chir ni re la namsang azu gi khola chi tha ro chesha ira thambone o thene ro chi ya mendus ngone tha ro chi chesana ani soba gome de khapo do re shas ngone tha ma ju jera mishindal chi yapor dujar ngone shida di suzu ngone lo irang tha ma ju ani dagas mi ne da khande ina thagarang la rangsala sha thuwa ro ji na ani soba gome gi khoga manga yesares Pena chashina chido jigi mijigla soja jo thonasra chida mindingi barala dewa khande ji ngone khorani khande di sama mashina thangwo khora thongdu zambata kholamsa mi dujare dolene thajo rura dende chiya mindusra ani soba gomegi ji di khorang mindos chida mindi bara tuzining ne khorani phazu ji dewa ji jiras dedawo che ani shinda chi chirda mi shinda gi chudo mangbo machina yara ani soba gome koga manga dus 지금 미신달라 말이 주도체 망아 지나야라 아니 소바에 틀을하고 망아 고무 키기듯 베네니 뭐 이게 찐이 식셔서라 직 방문에 누자 있네 줘서저 질랑원에 가서 기다 미치기 계속 작보여나라 코 작보래는 콜라 타주네 연조건에 작보를 있는데 제나 뒤치감 핑이 말았어 콜라 작보래는 원에 작보 연조디가 더능 작으로 도시그라스 디체자 아니 작보인데 뒤줄은 남상 타주네 연조건에 되는데 누가 래는 연조건 라나 초민두스 니바데니 다 공부 다 치래 저라 어디에니 딘데 따와지 백해침 보통 것도스
Yes. So, in the context of dealing with difficult situations and people, the first thing I would do is I would check in with my own feelings, where that hits me inside, and then from that place to try and first understand what is my need that I'm in conflict with or has been unmet or whatever. And then also reach out to the other person and try and understand what their need might be. And then communicate from that place and check in that this is what I think might be your need. Is that the case? So seek clarification and then kind of keep the communication going. Yeah.
Yes. Tini Quran jilana dinde da soba gomegi negam proji khanasra ta pena chashana lung la ro da dinde ro chi chunas dinde ge lung ro ji lang ani soba gomgu khie ne tan chilenasra thangbo soso gi chowa jira semnang la chowa chile de di tagji che ge chi bobe thongudus kezi ni chowa de la taji apo chi chetuna di jelasra ta nedang thanda chedang ani barala thupa do sho de na nedang dilasra ngala ani kharsa chajero kharer changmendusra ani ngala gokhoro kharere dusda tanda dini nedangla chimasane da chupasho yongyora ani phajodigi khare la dömendusra khola chajen khare changmendu khola gokho chi changmendus de ani hagoya pe kechembores dini hagoya chido ani kejashegores pasuya kejashe shewazam mahimba dini direlen da ngwe zintuwa gores nijai phazu इन किजा दी मुथु निशेत हुआ गोरेस दिन रेजिला नि मोय सेबा किन्यामने न मुंजी चीज Yes.
My first instinct is the same as Adriana's, to seek source or the need behind behavior. For example, does the person feel a need for recognition, for feeling special, for feeling included or similar for that? And at the same time, for me it's very, very important to not feel better than them, to see, I'm the same, to feel that equality. I don't want to feel I'm better than them. And many times it is not possible to understand the need. I don't know why a person acted a certain way. In such case, I focus just on my mind, just understanding that there are different types of situations that happen in life, different types of people, and I deal with my responses directly. which is usually harder but more beneficial.
Yes. Tini Kurangi tagi di pomudi tambo di shijo di yem do jabo rishasra. Tambo lamsa ani chunggung di karere do taya di pe kechin boris. Chunggung karere lana taya di kechin bo kachan re lana pajo mi di chiba di kandawa kawan ligi du le jura. Talung ni ligi yore, kongdo ni ligi yore lana yora. Kongdo tuan goya jumzen kare du ra. Kol chi masa ni yin sigir was. Pena chashina ko nganzu nyamdu da nyamdu robado mazi ni yang longzho chi sa yin sigira. Yana ko koran la mikse shibu zi tsor na susu tsorge yore nganzu ki mikse mazi ni yang ko longla na sigira. In chirda nganzu ki ko ki tsoa ko ki chik yora. Tende la nganzu ki dushe la na ngunzin chi yabo chi mate ni ko tende longi rang sigira was. Dezo la ani samlutang ni 다 계좌시에 간대신에 된지 로진이 소바고메 답시 지에레스 이니 이나 뒤따도 간족이 미신다기 중 공로의 중공 가레스라 최고의 저번에 뭐든지 최고의 좀전 지르는 따버 하고 해야 되다 가보러 왔어 근데 레드 좀 미다멘다 투르 아니 잠종 다멘다 미운도 좀 사마하고 해 가보 인자 근데 내당나 아니 만시로 수수수수 로라다에 계신 보통 로라 아니 로라다에 계신 분도 아니 디 냠네 디 카가도스라 카가 유네 아니 펜토슈 다가랑 그랬어
For me, it's a bit of a hard question. If I'll need to answer this question in a superficial way, I'll rephrase it. My tolerance, I think, depends a lot on the person in front of me, honestly speaking. If I feel that I have a partner for a conversation, there would be an amount of tolerance. I think lately, in the last period in my life, I discovered that tolerance relies a lot on compassion for me. But generally, I would say I'm approaching the situations, the interactions in my life, an approach that says, I'm sure I don't know everything, and I'm always wishing to listen. But these are the ideals, and like I said, they rely a lot on what's the interaction. Sometimes the interaction is too difficult to be tolerant at the moment. It doesn't mean I'm going to react in an angry way. It means I'm going to need a lot of time after the situation to actually to digest it. That would be the short version of my answer.
다 거기 디 지와디 카보치 소르거드스 인기자 그런 잠보시나스라 수바 곰마곰네 디니 듄라 미수두스라 딜라 니 시부랄레기 두스라 듄라 미수두레 듄라 미디냠도 다 계저시에기 로바지 라도 삼나라 딘데기 두시지 제나스셈노 데니 수발레디 곰투에 디스 곰투에로 기지 네단지 차르기두스 에네 단다기지다 니처 코랑 미지 주림이라 딘데라니 도난치윤도 좀바니 디 수발레 디 치르단치나 닝지레지메나요라 수발레 디 차레페 카포르샤스 아니 가드이네 코랑기다 미냠도다 계시 듄라 수이네다 딜라 시우랄레 둘라게요라 수발 곰마곰레 버좀미디 코냠도 기저시엘라 로바이 두시체 투사지레도 마레둘라딜라 라인도 좀바다 코랑기 간존네라 아니 미기 미디라 미디즈 칸시기레 딜라 녜라 슈탑시 치기스 베즌 치기스라 이나에니 계저 셰드니도 좀 봐라 랭면 용거라 랭면 용도 좀 랭면 상마 아니 직 시장부지 용이라 주시 담인데 가는 시행거라 디시엔데 좀 아니 수바 곰마곰라이다 칸데 차기 둘라나 ngai suba gomni gomai la di negap thiranga la ngai lungtwe mai la di dimar dusra khajana na jenera ngai ta thanda di negap ringa chi khala gir suba gomba do chin le maja shimu nyemba do chin nai jene ni khasa koran di lengme di zok ni jene pha du de zamba ra ta go shine samlo shiu tang ki du sen jo ne o thinde do ji la khapu thongi dus ku
Really notes from my class with I can't pronounce his name. I told you. Rinpoche.
Sorry, I'm not.
Rinpoche, the guy I was with Bushita, because we had like, we spoke about yeah, we spoke about being angry with people, and I was looking at my notes and stuff. I guess tolerance. I used to be a not very tolerant person. Still working on it, working tolerance. And I think studying Vedanta and Buddhism allows me to understand a few concepts. One of impermanence, you're constantly changing, so not hold someone accountable. Just hold them guilty for something they've done now, perhaps they're under a certain situation that makes them complicated and perhaps it will change in the future. But also not take things too personally. And I think I used to really want to change the situation for the better and take responsibility for it. And I began to release responsibility and sort of say, it's not mine, it's theirs, so somebody is angry. And by that I can be more tolerant of the situation, tolerable of the situation. And I actually practiced that very recently with somebody who had hurt me. Misunderstanding or disagreement about something. And I just tried through compassion and also just being real, see their side of the story, understand that that's their side. See what I can do about it, and what I could have done about it was to accept it. Genuinely just accept it and surrender to the situation. And trust that it's the way it's supposed to be, because I believe that the world is moving in a certain way for a reason. And yeah, just by accepting that I've achieved liberation from the process and I was able to tolerate it. Basically by accepting and sort of surrendering to the situation, I was able to tolerate it, if that makes sense.
Kurangi when sobaram boshina wanne di sunjiro shuyong sare sindi roja isara sindi delta dizamba ta samlo roji koryong dosra jirdan nangchu gi june ne khalare nyamlen gi tawa nyamlen da tawa sawa de jamina mambuch khoson sra ani koida soba nyamlen la de pe khakpo sorgi dosra jirdan ne kurang mi shu soba chemboji mes nyamaina tanda soba gome tapsi chede isra tanda ina bezin cheshimba is koida de samata yung de zamba ani jirdan changma da gejima laura jirdan changma jurder midabare lan de roji nangba ge siengoras di samata tuna ani lunglang na khare chena edem midabare gejima re lan de samata na soba gome la tablam jire dos niba de ani 가르치우나에 셈나무 슈 소화숙심 본능보지 케르 소소랑라 직체송 니 나르는 게르라 소화숙심 보체 체레지오라 디 야보마르도스라 데네 마체나니 소바고멜라 슈치 소바고멜라 타블람 지레도스 텐시엔지니 콩도사 진지오라 디 소소기 게마르와스 미신다 룽사데조지오라 룽사는 주바님바데나 룽사와당 콩룽나 주바님바 룽기 왕지 주바님바 지조조라 디 코이 겐로스 나기 게마르와레네 니마에나 프랑시우 겐코도치네 미신달라 지 삼록 당게서라 제네다 딩예 게마레라 코랑기 겐레라네 파든데 이와든데 칼레 장타로지 샤투나 아니 수수소바고야라 펜윈 두스 아니 지르당 코랑야 메진나라 지 춘조베로지 제샤스라 아니 소바고메 탑람 딘데로지 체스 미지냠도 튀마튀로죠 아니 파주니로 포도로지 추에서 아니 딘데 춘데서 마니 코랑기 네갑델라 칸데 삼마타이나나 당보 콘즈초네라 아니 네당델라 따스 칸데치스 라 콘즈초네 지카르도 어디 삼마치타이스 아니 딘데 네당 단데서 마니 타마타마델라 네당디 켈렌치토와 고라다 참미장면은 카테오주나 가르치는 그 참미장지 용시로 디 딜라 아니다 네당딜라 켈레 다 인지도는 서렌더 라기라 고타와도주라 다 디랑레 탑조레 다 디 조당고라 타가랑 레르네 고타와도 지체 딘데체나 네당디 켈리야 네당딜라 수바고메 딘데 아니 탑야가도스
Can I share one little thing that I just realized also that I haven't really touched upon? I mean, the question was perhaps different to the verse. Cherish cruel persons like a treasure of gems. Whatever happened to me happened after His Holiness talk, which was on the first of the mind. And from then, verse 6 was the one that attracted me the most. And I feel like they're quite similar. And I feel like that opportunity, that incidents that I had, allowed me also to take that and sort of turn it around and say, what can I learn from this? So I guess treat cruel people like treasure gems and treat cruel people as a spiritual teacher. It's the same thing for me, more or less. And maybe later in the Q&A you can elaborate maybe how they're different, because I see that there are two different verses, but I treat them very similarly, so perhaps later I'd like to find out how I can learn from both the wisdom separately.
Loss. This you remind to ask the question again, yeah? Okay. Tini 거기 연조원의 직할라니 됐을나 탄다 콜라니단지 중송란 좀 시에라다 거기. 네 콘서트에 가서는 사가다와니 모델라니 송준나라. 네기 제일 춘조레스. 아니 딜 제일 춘도 잠바니 거기 송주도 슈에도 잠바니 거기 답배자디 제라. 제도 잠바니 거 피기 지제 주바지요라. 디셈나서 부시고 중에서. 가지는 네당디 중으로다. 아니 신이 담바 따오래라. 달라면도 잠바다 거기가라 롭종마서는 롭세이나 질라브레스. 딜 투체나 라에레 스바고메라 지 펜손스. 더 디와신다지도 디제네 코랑 꾸일랭.
나가서 책 드시라. 근데 책 드시지 아니 미카시 하. 근데 책 아니 질렀다나 디 그냥서 두어도 게 말이라. 디 미파츠 참만 인도 갈라라. 미기들에 싸워만 챙겨라. 아, 나한테 대신에 아버도 코딜리 제시하라냐. 레체 말에 디라시라. 먼저 저거 보면은 인지민지 대입다 대처무지 기본으로야 말더라. 저거 가고 뭐 나도 시조나 만들어가 안 공고라. 세상 시조나 내단 담을 밑 강에 태지. 그저를 먼저 럽잖아요. 봐. 전자 치도야 엔데 삼시라. 나도 디 럽잖아 마차이민도 아니 저디나 도서는라. 디지마다 나도 저번에 가고 뭐 시조나라 만들어 민담을 두두가 아니 간저 동네 체라. 근데 이거는 잠장 알아서 나로라. 치도 인자. 파기를 강에 쓰시 수수교 삼세도 파니에 쓰니 디나로랑 가져다 수고야 있는데 막고야 계시 살아서 막고야 수수 유신 되고라 디나로를 펜토버진다 내가 미리 시어 수수를 고야를 라야 수수냐 냠네 체 되고라 다디나 수수 막고야는 콜라디 디김도 갈라고 말 수수 유신 되고라 딩게 디치는 가서 파주 시에게 치대하네 갈라고라 저 bagum다이네 미치 검는 네 가지 상담하는 미치그라 라 그러나 미직 산다는 가주 뭐 가주 탐나 산다 타와이나 미직라 세상 아주 참하게 찍만다 말아이 고도 페르고라 세상 아주 타와다 아니 대사를 본데 저거야 카레 다리 콜레스 산이 콜레스 아니 콜레스 되라 미시미니 집어서 들리다 아니 집어서 되니 마다봐 티기 칼라를 집바 페고 말 럽정이야 봄 미니모도 요마라 라 얘니 마다봐 칠세 저 가르시바데 니 시그리 니 가르시바데 칠시그리 심바가자는 게 걸어져라고 말 세상 단단 아저들이 막 저거가 미유디 가리는 저랑도 파츠나로는 지금 강에 같이 있는데 그래서 보고도 돈에 간데 제임에 시당 시에게 지금 지라 네 이제 저랑도 셈바티는 가리는 잠자들라 배마세 투치라.
So then I would like to thank you all for kind of sharing your insights and your sharing it very openly with the group. And then it is kind of you might get the feeling that why are we not studying the text itself, and why am I asking all of you to share your own insights and to the group, and why are we not sticking to the text and to the study of the text? Then it is because, like as I told you before, then the real practice of these methods and the real application of these methods lies in how we conduct ourselves when we go back into society. And then when we think about society, it is nothing different than a collection of different people, which is exactly this right now. And if we are able to kind of openly listen to somebody else's insights, somebody else's perspective, then not only do we kind of are more open-minded, then we also have the opportunity to kind of broaden our perspective as well as gain new insights for ourselves, and then approach the text from various perspectives too, not just from a single person's perspective. For me as a teacher, I'm one person. And if I talk about it only from my perspective, then I can only talk about from my perspective. But if we hear from everyone, then there are like numerous doors from which we can explore the same techniques, same methods. So this is why I want to I approach it in this manner. And this is also the reason why in the monastic education system, when we engage in debate, then no two particular people always are the same partners, have the same partners for debate. We kind of exchange it all the day. One day you debate with someone else, the next day you debate with someone else. This is to kind of broaden our perspective, to listen to more people's idea of the same concepts. So this is why I encourage you to kind of share your own insights, to explore different doors and different ways of looking at the same thing. And so yes, I thank you all for sharing these insights very openly with the group.